Now, we're very glad to be here this evening and to be able to tell you something about the work in the land of Nepal. Now, my programme has been a little messed up as a result of my own fault, because I came out tonight with the intention of showing a presentation here with nice photographs and so on, and I arrived with my projector and everything, and I set it on the front seat, and then the penny dropped. Wesley, you haven't got your computer with you. So I'm very sorry, but we'll be able to give a report. You know, I was 65 just last year, just at the end of last year in October, and this is what happens, you see, whenever you reach that age. You get old and you start to forget things and you start to totter, and well, I'm sure I'll have to be reminded of this many, many times in the future. But nonetheless, that's the way it is. We just have to be content with that. But we're going to give you a report, and then later on, after we've had another hymn or so, we'll bring us a word from the Lord. But I want to give you a report, and it's really based on the presentation that we have at any rate, and so that will do. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your prayers and for your support over the past number of years. We certainly appreciate the support that God's people give to us in the land of Nepal as we seek to serve the Lord there. And especially would like to thank you for your support during the time of the earthquake. We'll tell you something about the earthquake in a moment or two, but there was a big earthquake there, and as you know, in April 2015, and a lot of damage was done, and a lot of our people were affected, and the people here in Ulster, as well as in other places, responded to the appeal that was made. And there was some £240,000 raised at that time, a magnificent sum. And we want to assure you that all the money that was raised reached its intended target. And so we appreciate, and the people out there certainly appreciate, the support that you gave to them at that time. We'd like to bring you greetings also from the Free Presbyterian Church in Nepal, and from Paul Thapa, who is the moderator, and he would want to have his greetings conveyed to you. Now, I was here not so very long ago, and I don't know really what I said on that occasion. It may be I'll repeat myself, and it's not because I'm getting old, but it's just by nature of things here, I can't just remember exactly what it was we said the last time. So I may say things here tonight that I've said before, but the church in Nepal that we were involved with and have been connected with now for 7 years full time was called the Nepal Mission to the Unreached. Well, in November 2013, that group of believers took the decision to associate themselves with the Free Presbyterian Church. And in November 2013, there was an ordination of 22 men, and they set up their presbytery, and that presbytery meets now twice yearly in order to conduct the business of the various churches. Now, if you want a good description of what the Lord has done in the land of Nepal over the past 14 years, for the work began really in 2003, we really could use the words that Balaam used over there in Numbers chapter 23, "What hath God wrought?" And truly the Lord has done great things in that land. Paul and Mandira Thapa got the vision to reach the villages of Nepal. They began to pray in March 2003, and from that people were converted, and many churches and fellowships have been formed. Now, church buildings have also been erected in various places, and we've been able to help with the erection of those buildings. They're not as fancy as what we would have here in Northern Ireland, but they certainly serve the purpose there. Some of these people have been meeting in what you would say bamboo houses, bamboo buildings, and there's just bamboo down the side, bamboo on the roof, some sort of a makeshift roof. And whenever the monsoon comes, the rain comes, it can come in the top, in through the sides, and of course it can come up up from the ground as well, so there's no escape from the rain. And these buildings they put up, they do help to give the people a little comfort building there cost approximately about £4,000. You would probably like to have your building out here, the back up for £4,000. Well, that's the way it is there. But of course, while their buildings are important, well, churches, of course, are not building. Our buildings are not the church. The church is the people that have been converted, called out of the world, and brought into fellowship. And it's thrilling, to see groups of people in isolated places coming together. We think of one young man, and we visited him last year, April, up a river. We had to drive in a vehicle up this river, and this young man was converted. He went back to his village, and he began to witness to people, and he has now maybe a group of about 30 people meeting in that village. Just a young man with no education, but the Lord used him, and the Lord has gathered a number of people there. And that's just typical of many places in the land of Nepal that the Free Presbyterian Church has founded places of worship, or churches. Now, we also have some churches in the city of Delhi in India. Many Nepalis go to Delhi to get work. There is very little work for Nepalis in Nepal itself. It's a very poor country, very little industry. Well, then people go overseas, and many of them go to Delhi. And there are about 4 or 5 churches in the city of Delhi connected to the Free Presbyterian Church. And there's one young man there who's been ordained as the minister of the work there, Deepak by name. You'll not remember these names, but he's responsible for the work, and he goes around those works and seeks to lead and to give that help and leadership to them. Now, one of the big features of the church in Nepal are the annual conferences that are held. There is one held in the month of April that is for everybody, and then there is one held in October which is mainly for young people. And again, it's a thrilling thing to see people coming from very far off, maybe have to travel. Some people maybe have to travel for 24 hours on a bus, and they're not travelling it's not Ulster bus, it's maybe a rough sort of a bus, and having to travel over very rough terrain and over rough roads. But they come to the city of Kathmandu and they stay for 4 days, and the Word of God is preached to them, 14 sessions usually over those days. And they have to sit. They haven't got a nice comfortable seat like you, and they have to sit for 4 preaching sessions every day. And we've had various ministers over the years, and Dr. Pollock, Stephen Pollock from Ballymagerney, was with us last year, and other men, the Reverend John Greer and other men have been with us in the past. But it's a great time of fellowship for the people as they come together, and it binds them together, and of course they give attention to God's Word, and it's a good way to instruct the people. The work that we have been involved in the main since going there in 2010 has been the Bible College. The Bible College commenced in April 2010, and we brought in at that time, I think, about 14 or 15 students. Well, since that time, 140 men and 70 women, or 90 women rather, have done the Bible College course. And that has been a great encouragement. Now, not all of these men, of course, will become pastors, but it certainly has laid a foundation in their lives, and has laid a foundation for the future of the church. Many of the women, they will go back to their churches to teach in Sunday school, to help amongst the women, and so on. And again, it has laid a foundation for them as they seek to serve the Lord in their own church. The men have a course of 5 months, and it's a very intensive course. They usually do 3 months at the end of the year, and now they'll be doing the 2 months at the beginning of the year. We hope to go back to help with some of the teaching. We don't do much of the teaching now. The Nepalis do most of the teaching themselves, but we'll be doing 2 months now. The Bible College has actually started back now, and they'll be finishing their course and graduate then in the month of April. The ladies do 6 weeks. They don't have as an intensive a course, but then they're not going to be pastors. They just get taught on the basics of the Christian faith. The radio broadcasts are still going out. There are 26 stations taking the gospel to large parts of Nepal. 10 of those stations are broadcasting 7 days a week, and 10 of those stations are broadcasting 2 days a week. And we have to pay for those 20 stations, and there are 6 stations that we get for free. And I'm not just sure, probably 2 days a week for those stations. But these 26 stations are taking the gospel to maybe 70, 80% of the country. And that's created a lot of interest. Many people write in. And whenever they write in, they get a gospel booklet, Dr. Alan Kearns' booklet on the new beginning. They get that booklet in Nepali. And not only that, but Paul then sends someone, an evangelist, to that person to make contact with them in the village. And that sometimes means going to some very remote places. And as a result of that, maybe 10, 12 churches have been formed. The evangelist goes, speaks to this person that is showing the interest, and the person maybe comes to Christ, and maybe other members of the family come to the Lord. Maybe 2 or 3 families in the immediate area come to the Lord, and they form themselves into a fellowship. And that's how some of these churches, or many of these churches, have been formed. Another part of the work is the Precious Orphanage. And you've probably read about this over the years. Back in 2003, Paul got a burden to start an orphanage in Nepal. Many children lost their parents and so on, and they need homes. He started with 5 children in 2003. There are now approximately 29 children in the home. And these children are all educated in schools. They're all sent to private schools, and they're all educated. And they're also hear the word of God every day. And that's very important. Now, Paul isn't content just that 29 children be cared for. He got a vision to multiply the home up, and the home, we're now building a home to house 60 children. Of course, that's twice the size, twice the finance, and so on. Well, the new home is coming close to completion. It's 3.5 stories high. The final story has been completed, and they're now plastering out the inside and outside. I think they've done the inside, maybe working on the outside, and they're going to fit the whole thing out. And the Lord, up to this moment, is providing the need. There's probably some more finance required for that, but the Lord has provided the need in a remarkable way for the work that has been done so far. Now, you will be aware that Joy Gillespie, who has been serving the Lord in Spain, has now left that work, and she feels that God is calling her to Nepal. Now, she will be coming mainly to work with the children and amongst the young people and the women. And you can pray for Joy as she prepares herself for language study. She was there at the end of last year, trying to seek out a language school, and I think she found one, which will certainly give her the basics of the language. But she's doing some deputation meetings, probably will be here in the church at some stage to speak about her work. And then she hopes to go out maybe July or August of this year to serve the Lord. Pray for her as she seeks to learn the language. It's a very difficult language. It's not just like English. You think English is difficult. Well, Nepali is very, very difficult. I always say your tongue would need to be hinged in the middle to try and pronounce the words. It is so difficult, and she would appreciate your prayers. And I just want to say something about the earthquake. I was here some time ago. It may have been that I mentioned it at that time. I can't remember. But on the 25th of April 2015, I was standing at the back of the church building in Kathmandu, and I'd just preached. And after the service, we were standing talking to people as we normally do. And all of a sudden, a couple of young girls began to shout and to run out of the building. And all this was happening in seconds. Through my mind, in these seconds, the thoughts were, what's all this fuss about? Well, it wasn't too long till I found out what the fuss was about, because the floor started to move and the building above us started to move. And then we started to move as well. We decided it was time to get out, and so we made for the door, and we eventually got out the gate. And as we were making our way out, we're talking about 15 seconds from the door of the church out to the gate through the perimeter wall, 15 seconds. But it seemed like an eternity, because as we were making our way out, Carol and myself were thrown from one side and then to the other. You could hardly keep your feet. Well, we got out through the front door, and someone said, "What about the children?" Now, the building is 4 stories high. There's the ground floor, and then there's another 2 stories on top of that, and then there's another half story on top of that again. So the children were up in that room for their Sunday school. Now, you're all familiar with the pendulum and the clock. The pendulum's attached to the clock, but the pendulum itself at the bottom, it's swinging like that, back and forward. Well, you turn the pendulum upside down, and we are attached as where we are on the ground floor, and the ground, it's moving all right, but you can imagine what it must have been in the top. I can't hardly imagine, because some of the workers said they thought their end had come. They thought the whole thing was going to come down, and they with it. Well, thankfully, the building didn't suffer major structural damage, and it was built to a decent earthquake standard, and the children all come down safely, as did the buildings all around us. They stood because they were built to a decent standard. Sometimes there's shoddy workmanship in Nepal, and when that happens, then buildings would come down in such a situation. But thankfully ours stood and still stands, and it's well constructed. Now, the earthquake claimed the lives of 9,000 people. Over 20,000 people were injured, and it's reckoned there could be up to 1 million homes destroyed in the earthquake. Whole villages or parts of villages just come away. The villages built up the side of a mountain. If a mountain comes away, the houses come away. The whole side of the mountain comes away. There was one village about 40 miles from where we live, and there was a landslide, and it covered that village to about 30 metres deep in mud. 200 people were killed in the village. It is said that the force of that landslide was half the force of an atomic bomb. So that lets you see the power. It is reckoned that part of the Himalayas, a vast mountain range, part of the Himalayas come down to 3 feet in height. And Everest moved, it is reckoned, 1 inch. Now, it would take some moving to move Everest, but there you are, the power of the earthquake. Now, I want to tell you about the effects on the churches, because this is where you come in. You responded to this. There was one pastor killed, a man that we had taught in the Bible college. He was due to be ordained later in 2015, but tragically he lost his life. 6 other people lost their lives in 2 churches. 275 families lost their homes, and there were 1,500 members comprised in those families, and they were affected. 5 church buildings also were destroyed. Now, we did launch an appeal here. Our mission board launched the appeal, and there was £240,000 raised, and all that money reached its intended location. Now, what did we do with the money? Well, we purchased rice, oil, blankets, tarpaulins for the roof, and also tin for the roof, because many of the people lost their homes, lost their roofs as well, and so we give each family a grant to purchase tin in order that they might have a dry place to live. And then, whenever all the money was, all those things were attended to, I think we had about £60,000 left, and we decided then to divide that £60,000 over those 275 families, but we divided it in such a way so that if a family had 2 in it, well, they got accordingly. If a family had 6, they got then accordingly there. So we tried to be as fair as possible in the distribution of the aid. And whenever I told Paul there was £60,000 left, after having received 180,000, he was overwhelmed. He just couldn't take it in. And the people there are so thankful to you for your contribution. And of course, they're thankful to the Lord that he provided their needs at that time. There are people in Nepal, even at this moment, have not really had any major relief since the earthquake because of the corruption that there is in the country, because of the inefficiency, because of men looking after number one, and the aid that has come from foreign governments. Many people have not received that aid. But I'm very glad to tell you that the Free Presbyterian people that are associated with us, they benefited greatly from the contribution that you made. Now, just some items for prayer, and I want you to take these things upon your heart. And I'm sorry I don't have the slides or the pictures, because the pictures do impress upon your mind certain things. But I would like you to pray for two young people. And both these young people want to become medical missionaries. I mentioned first of all Sarita. Sarita is our next door neighbour, a young girl, a young woman. We met her coming now, I think 6 years ago, coming this year. And she was a young Hindu girl and was determined to be a Hindu girl and to show us that the Hindu religion was the best religion. And Sarita came into contact with us by about March, April 2011. And she used to come into our home, spent many, many days in our home. She used to come in every weekend, and she used to debate these things. And at that time she was only 13 years of age, but an intelligent young girl, and asked many, many questions. Well, the following year, in February 2012, she was just about 14 years of age. The Lord broke into her life. The Lord saved her, changed her. What a transformation there was. And you couldn't believe the transformation there was just in an instant of time. Well, from that moment, she wanted and expressed her desire to become a medical missionary. And that meant studying for A-levels. They do their A-levels here, just as they do them here. And it meant studying for A-levels. And then if she got her A-levels, then it involved her sitting an entrance exam to get into medical college in Nepal or in some other country or whatever. Well, Sarita did sit her A-levels. She got the required results. She then did her entrance exam and she got the offer, maybe 4, 5 different colleges, some in Nepal, some in Bangladesh. Now, we did set up a medical fund. We have that medical fund going at the moment, whereby these young people can be supported, because there's no way in this world they could ever hope to pay their fees or pay what's required to get them through medical school. It would be a total impossibility. Have to be very wealthy. We had this medical fund, and Sarita was accepted, and she accepted a college in Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh is just about an hour, 15 minutes away in flight, but it was the cheapest option. The ones in Nepal were very expensive. We didn't have the money at the time, but we did have the money to send her to this particular college, and we were able to pay her first part of her fees. We had enough money to do that, and she has now commenced just over a week ago. She went to that college. We're speaking to her today. She's so happy that she's there studying for her medical degree. Of course, that'll take 5 years, and then after that she'll have a year or two to do as far in the hospital and so on. But the Lord has answered prayer, and the Lord has opened up the way for her, and we want to be able to help Sarita through her college training, through this medical fund. So pray for Sarita that God would enable her to get through this course, provide her need, and then open the way into missionary work in some way. Pray also for Isaac. Isaac Thapa is Paul Thapa's natural son. Isaac is also wanting to go down this route. Now, he's a year behind Sarita, But this time next year, God willing, Isaac hopefully will be in the same position. And we want to be able to help Isaac as well. He has finished his A-levels, waiting now for the results, but he has to do these entrance exams as well later on, maybe in the autumn time. Pray for Isaac as well, that he will have success in this area. Another matter for prayer, pray for the protection of the work. The devil is always wanting to attack the work of God. I hardly need to tell you that. He's been attacking the work of God from Genesis chapter 3. And he's still at it. Pray that God would protect the work from attacks from without. For example, government interference in any way, because remember, it's a Hindu state, it's a Hindu country, and there would be powers and forces there that would seek to hinder the gospel. Pray that God would keep his restraining hand upon that situation, keep his restraining hand upon the government authorities as they might seek to interfere in the home. Pray that God would protect that. But pray also protection from within, that God would protect the work from attack from within. There are those recently, there was one man recently who left the work and has sought to cause division, take others with him. Thankfully, it doesn't appear to have caused any major problems, but it was a big disappointment to Paul. It was a big disappointment to me. This young man that went away, in fact, was the clerk of the Presbyterian. So that's just how major it was. And it was a big blow to Paul, as I say. Pray that this will not have any major effect upon the work. And pray also for us that as we seek to help in the work with advice, that wisdom would be given. The presbytery there was set up in November 2013, and our own church, our own mission board, commissioned us for the help there for at least 5 years with advice. We do go twice a year, not for major long periods, but we do go twice a year to try and help in the presbytery. We do some lecturing in the college, but we're trying to get to the point where all the lecturing will be done by the men there. They do most of it now, and the remaining lectures that I have, I want to be able to offload those to the men and pray that the Lord will raise up men to enable that to happen. And we would like to challenge those in the meeting tonight, especially those that are young. There's a work for Jesus for you to do. And you need to pray that prayer of the Saul of Tarsus, lying on the dust outside the gate of Damascus. Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? The Lord called us to Nepal. He called me when I was 58 years of age. And I would love to be 25 years of age. That's not going to happen again. Well, there may be those here tonight, and they are that age, maybe younger, maybe a little older. Well, you just give your life completely over to the Lord. I can tell you it's no disappointment to serve the Lord. What blessings he gives you, what rewards you have. The Lord will bless you if you give your life to him. Will you not say, well, Lord, here I am. Here am I. Send me. I trust the Lord will bless these few words to our heart tonight. And do please continue to uphold the work in the land.